Coming up on this podcast, we are joined by the second biggest Collingwood fan in the nation behind Strawny. Swoop Luke to preview the Collingwood Magpies in season 2025. What a pleasure it was to be joined by Swoop, who's massive on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, with all things Collingwood. It is now his full-time job to go to Collingwood trainings, go to Collingwood games, and just talk Collingwood. It is great to speak to him, just hear about someone that follows a club. Das.
Yeah, it was awesome, Jev. And that's obviously the dream one day, hopefully full-time. And he's planning on going to every single game. He gave us some absolute nuggets. So make sure you listen, guys. You know where to find us at 100K Sports. Like and subscribe. You guys can find us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Make sure you share this out. If you're a Collingwood fan, this really helps out the pod. I hope you guys all enjoy.
Welcome back to the 100K podcast, powered by PointsBet. It is the 2025 season previews, and we are up to the Collingwood Magpies, and we are joined by a very, very special guest, Swoop Luke, the number one Collingwood fan on the planet. Swoop, how are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Thanks for having me on, boys. Very excited. It should be an absolutely cracking episode.
So, got Das with me as well. Das, we've sent Swoop the question. Do you want us to call you Swoop or Luke?
It's easy. Either way, it's all good.
We've sent him the questions, Das. We're pumped for this one.
Yeah, we are. So usually we're going to try and get as many guests on as we can because we can't get to all the trainings and we can only go off the stats and things that we see last year. So really wanted to obviously dive into this. Can you tell us how many trainings do you actually go to, and is this pretty much like your full-time gig now?
Yeah, so now that it's my full-time gig, so I quit my job in October, did 6 weeks in Europe and wanted to hit this hard when I got back, which coincided with the boys getting back to training. I've been to every single training session since then. So it's been about 20-something training sessions since late November, early November. And the boys are looking really good, and it's very, very exciting to be a Collingwood supporter at the moment.
That's so good that it's now your full-time gig. We're hoping in the next year or two that we can get to a stage where we can try and make this our full-time gig as well. So it's awesome to see some people actually jumping in the deep end and actually getting it done.
And then, so where do we find you? So you're at Swoop Luke on Instagram, and then YouTube, you are...
Yeah, so at Swoop Luke pretty much everywhere. So TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Just cracked over 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, which has been a goal of mine since forever. Close to 40K on Instagram, which I hope to hit soon. And yeah, it's just great to have the support of the Collingwood community, and people coming up to me for just to say that they love Collingwood, or just to talk Collingwood, and I'm always down to talk Collingwood. Like it's what I do now, full time, pretty much. So I'm always down to talk to the talk about the Pies.
That's awesome. It's unbelievable. So we'll send you the question. So we'll get into the first question. We always start with competition A graders. Who are Collingwood's competition A graders or competition A grader? Who do you have, Swoop?
Oh, look, it's hard to go past Nick. And he's only a couple of years into the system, already a premiership player, could have won the Brownlow 74 out of 75 years, or whatever that stat was last year with how much he tallied. And I guess that's cliche to say Nick Dacos, but I still think, even though he's 47, I still think Scott Pendlebury is pretty much an A grader. And seeing what he can do at training, seeing that he was coming off triathlons over the summer. He's riding everywhere. He looks fitter than ever. And the new boy Dan Houston, two-time All-Australian on the half-back line. And I've said this before in a lot of my videos, is that Dan Houston is practically having the best parts of Nick Dacos's halfback journey when he started out. You've got that in Dan Houston, who can permanently stay there, who doesn't have to go into the midfield because you've got Nick Dacos in the midfield. So now you got two Nick Dacoses, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Nah, here, Das, who have you got as competition A graders?
Yeah, I agree with both of them. The one thing I want to say about Nick, so I was a little bit slow to come to the party. I thought we glazed him a lot when he first came into the league. And I know this is probably easy to say because Bont doesn't have a Brownlow, but every time we look at Nick now, I think we have to consider him and look at him like you look at Lachie Neale, like you look at Five, like he's a two-time Brownlow medalist. He missed out on that first one, so he got injured against Hawthorn. There was still 3 games to go. He only missed out on that Brownlow by 3 votes. You're not telling me that he's not getting 3 votes in one of those 3 last games. Yeah. And then, as you said, if it was any other year, the record was 36 votes. Who had it? Wines and Dusty. He had 38. The caliber of player that he is, he demands the respect every single time you watch him. that he's like a 2-time Brownlow medalist. So him, and as you said, I'm really excited to see how you guys use Houston going forward. But Jev, I'm sure that they're probably the only two that you're putting up as well.
Yeah, so I've only got one, but when it comes to Dacos, I call them competition diamonds. I reckon there's only 5 in the league that are head and shoulders above the rest of the league. That's Dacos, Cripps, Heaney, Bont, and Lockie Neal. And I think they're even higher than competition A graders. I think they're head and shoulders. Yeah, so he's the only competition A grader for me, but now we're getting to position A graders. So I've got Dan Houston as an absolute lock as a position A grader, Swoop. And then I've got Bobby Hill. I think he's an A grade forward pocket. But then I've got questions on these guys. If we're judging them on their best or your premiership year, they were A graders. But then last year, they weren't as good. So Josh Dacos, is he still an A grade wingman? Darcy Moore, is he still an A grade key defensiveman? Braden Maynard, and the other one's Jordan De Goey. So I'll let you go with position A graders, and you tell us.
Well, first off, I'll address those sort of players just quickly. So Josh Dacos, during these training sessions, he's been training more off the half back line as well. So I think they're going to utilize him off the half back line more. They were utilizing him like that towards the end of last season when we needed that sort of, quote unquote quarterback to sort of lead that polished kicking outside of the back line. So they're going to sort of switch him around from wing to half back. And a lot of players dipped colours last season, mainly because at one point we had, I think, about 17 players on the injury list. So everyone was trying to play multiple positions at the same time. But with the likes of Jordan De Goey, he has all the markings of being a competition or a position A grader. We just, it's every single year. It's like, this is his year. He's going to break out. He's going to break out. And he never does. And sometimes it is because of injury. Sometimes it's, his own doing. But he's back into full training now. And he's looking good, but we're not really going to know about him until the preseason games sort of start. One guy I do want to talk about as a position A grader who doesn't get mentioned a lot because he's been out of action for a long time is Dan McStay. And I know when he came to the Pies, it was very much like, oh my God, $650,000 or whatever he was on. That's paying overs for a guy that's going to be third tall or what it may be. But seeing him up close at training, he hasn't practically dropped a mark this whole time, and he's a big guy. And with the help of Tim Membry now and Brody Myercheck, if Dan McStay can stay on the park consistently all season, he could be a premier forward that's going to kick, maybe not Curno's 70 goals, but he's going to kick 40, 45 goals as the go-to.
When me and Jev went to the Collingwood Port game the other year, and we watched Dan McStay, and he just cracks in. Like watching him live, like as you said, he's a big lad, and he brings the ball to ground, so he's massive. But what I did want to say as well, Jordan De Goey, 100%, he could walk in if any team drafts him, he walks straight into their midfield or wherever he wants. Is he looking bigger? I saw some footage. I don't know, like up close. Some guys look like they've leaned up. He looks like thicker. Does he look bigger?
It's hard because it's kind of both. He does look a little bit leaner, but he does look a little bit bigger, like muscle-wise, because he's had to, with that groin injury and that hamstring, all he could do was train upper body pretty much. So he looks like he has gotten stronger, but he has gotten, from what I can see, he has gotten a little bit quicker as well and more explosive. What I want to see from Jordan De Goey and the coaches this year is, you think back to 2018 when Jordan De Goey was just a forward. I think he ended up kicking 45 or 48 goals that season and nearly won us the grand final. So I want to see Jordan do, yes, in the midfield, that explosive midfield, but I want to see him push into the forward line because you're not really going to find a good matchup for him because he is just so strong. And I think he'd complement Bobby and Lockie and even Jamie Elliott really well in that forward line.
100%.
I've just got a quick question for you. So doing our Brisbane preview, I've created basically, I call it the Will Ashcroft yardstick. And I think he's basically the 15th best midfielder in the comp now. And I ask, I asked Collingwood supporter, going into 2025, would you rather Will Ashcroft or Jordan De Goey?
Oh, if we're basing it on right now, you would have to pick Will Ashcroft just because of what he's done and because you can't trust Geordie's body either at the moment. And Will's obviously, what is he, 8, 9, 10
19,
years?
Yeah, basically 20 this year, yeah.
Yes, Jesus Christ. So he's still so young. And I think this season, just for the AFL in general, is really going to be a passing of the baton onto the young kids. So you're going to see the likes of Sheasel, both Ashcrofts as well. Even Sam Laylaw from Richmond. I know he's going to be so young and he's going to play his only first game and stuff, but even he could go past some of these competition guys. It's going to be an incredible year.
So we go into the next one. So notable role players. So a couple of big ones. I've like Braden Maynard, obviously just does the team things. You look at McQuarrie as well. Like he doesn't have to kick 4 goals every week. He loves to lay tackles. Is there any big role players or is there anything you're seeing at training where someone might be doing something different this year, literally just for the team? What's standing out?
I love Harry Perryman. So Craig McRae loves a role player in the simplest terms of Swiss Army knife. Think of like Will Hoskin Elliott.
Yeah.
Can play in the midfield, wing, forward, back. Harry Perryman is a younger Will Hoskin Elliott, and Will has been much maligned by our supporters. He's really been the punching bag. But if you go back and look at the 2023 final series, towards the end of every single game, notably the Giants game, the grand final, and I'm pretty sure the Melbourne game as well, the ball was pretty much in his hands for the final minute or so. So the team trusts him, the coaches trust him. But Harry Perryman, I know he's sort of on big money. Not that we really know what it is, but he came from the Giants as a halfback player or a defensive player, wants to play more midfield time. He has been absolutely ripping it up as an inside mid training, and with no Tom Mitchell as well, because we don't really know what Tommy's timeline is with that stress fracture in his toes. Harry Perryman could be the steal of the trade period. I know we got Dan Houston, and I say steal even though he's on 900,000, but he's going to be under the radar, and he looks phenomenal. Really good leadership as well for only being at the club for 3 or 4 months, and really good below his knees, and he can burst through a pack. So that's probably going to be my most exciting player to look out for this year.
No, he's a competitive beast, and like teams just love that. The Giants were spewing to lose him. It's good to hear you say that because I love him as a footballer as well. And me and Das, we're massive on notable role players. We think they win premierships. Like I watched Josh Dunkley and Jared Berry last year basically stand on Heaney and Warner for a day in the grand final day and beat him. So yeah, I love the call. Das, do you have any notable role players you want to talk about?
Yeah, it was pretty much the same. I just love McQuarrie, like his role. And as we said, so when we did our season preview the year before, and even as you said, Jebs, when you look at Brisbane, every time you look at a premiership team or last year they won it, there's just so many role players absolutely everywhere. And obviously you guys just dipped a little bit last year and there was some injuries, and then all of a sudden like Sidebottom looks a little bit slow. Is he a little bit suspect? So when everything's rolling, they look really good. So I'm really interested to see if the Pies can actually bounce back and then they can actually really step up and you can have a full, complete team again this year. Let's get into some young guns, because when I look at it, I actually don't see that you guys have any young guns coming through. Like who are they? Like I was trying to go through the list. Like you got rid of a couple other picks. Like obviously you got rid of your first round to get Schultz in. Who are they?
Ed Allen is going to be absolutely fantastic. I don't know if you guys watched the Collingwood Melbourne game towards the end of last year. Ed Allen dominated. I think he's about as tall as Paddy Cripps, and he's a big boy. He'll probably be best 23 by the end of the year. And like I said a little bit earlier, that this is the passing of the baton throughout the AFL. It is the passing of the baton at the Pies as well. It kind of reminds me of going into the 2010 year, not so much because we won the flag that year, but because, Shane O'Brien, Tarkin Lockyer, these sort of guys who are staples of the Collingwood side, were getting going in the twos because you've got Steele, you had Pendlebury, Thomas, all coming through, Sharrod Wellingham. So I feel like this year we do have a little bit more depth. Ed Allen is definitely one to keep an eye on. Will Parker as well. He's played 5 or 6 games. He looks more like a footballer now. He's off the halfback. Harry DiMattia wants to play on the wing. So with Josh Dacos moving into that half-back line, DiMattia, he looks like he's sort of shoe-marked that wing space there. And like you said with Steele, these older guys, even Pendlebury, and Jeremy Howe, their heads on the line. They need to perform. There's not just like, okay, we're going to play Pendles because he's Pendlebury. He's the greatest ever Collingwood player. These guys are chomping at the bit behind him. We're going to put them ahead of him. So everyone is on the line at the moment.
Yeah. So in your best 22, going into this year. You've basically got a 37-year-old Pendles, 35-year-old Jeremy Howe, 34-year-old Steele Sidebottom, 34-year-old Mason Cox, 33-year-old Jamie Elliott, 32-year-old Brody Myercheck, Tom Mitchell's 32, whether he's playing or not, 32-year-old Will Hoskin-Elliott, 31-year-old Jack Crisp, and a 31-year-old Tim Membry's been bought over. Does Craig McRae trust young players? Because we never really see kids. So you've got the kid, you've got the best player in the comp, Nick Dacos. But I'm super worried in 2 years' time when Nick Dacos is in the absolute peak of his powers and then 75% of those guys I just named aren't playing anymore, that you don't have enough kids around him. Like I don't see any 18, 19-year-old kids playing for Collingwood. What do you think of that? You're going to see more 18, 19-year-old kids, or does Craig McRae not trust them, or...
I think with Collingwood and Jeff Brown, our former president, and I think Graham Wright and Craig Kelly said it a couple of years ago as well. We haven't been going to the draft a lot, right? We'll draft some kids, which you have to. You got to draft like 3 minimum. But with free agency and you can trade future first round picks and now coming at the end of the year, you can trade up to 2 years in advance. They want to pick these guys that are ready to go in that 25 to 28 age bracket. Like I can see what everyone's saying where, you need to sort of have this balance of young kids that are learning. But even in the draft this year, we batted really deep. We've picked up 2 key position players, a key forward and a key defender that we haven't picked up in at least 10 years because we're always going for those mids. And they just developed. Like Ed Allen, when he signed or when we drafted him, they gave him a 2-year contract extension straight up because they believed in him. And they want these guys just to ply their trade in the VFL and learn off these older guys. And I know we've got 50, 30-year-olds in that best 22, but when the premiership window is open, I don't think it's not about trusting the younger guys, but if the premiership window is open, you're going balls out for it. Like
Yep.
Richmond was different, right? They gave away all their senior players because they wanted to rebuild, and that's fair enough. But if the window is open, you're chucking everything you can while you can, and and then free agency comes in, and we've once those guys do drop off, so Pendle, Sidey, Jeremy Howe, you're looking at a war chest. You can get LDU for $1.5 million a season,
Yep.
or you can go for these free agents that are just going to keep topping you up.
Yep.
So
No, I love it.
with our next one, so we go over depth. So you can pretty much roll this question however you want. The biggest thing that I love that you guys have done is that the fact you got Dan Houston in. So the reason why I've been so jealous as being a Carlton supporter, we've never had good elite kicks. You watch you guys, even when you made the prelim in 2022, you won at 23. You guys have elite foot skills coming out of the back line. Like Nick Dacos can make kicks that most people can't. Then you've always got Sidebottom. You've had Penbury. Now you get Josh Dacos back there. And I just feel that's going to be your DNA again going forward. Like when you guys get it, if there's a point, you guys will just either – you can hold on to the ball, and even if it's man on man, you guys will find someone because you guys can take off kicks and then you just rebound straight back out. Is there anything to do with your depth that you really love?
Well, this year I feel like we've got more depth than we ever have before. So last year when we did have all those big injuries, we had to pull guys out of the VFL, like Ned Long, Lockie Sullivan, Will Parker, who barely had a preseason because he came from cricket, and chuck those guys right in. So that's why our form was dipping a little bit. But now you've got 2 or 3 players that can pretty much play every position. Like I was saying with Josh Dacos, you think of him on a wing, but he can go to halfback. Harry Perryman, even though they want to play him as inside mid, can go to halfback. Dan Houston as a halfback can go into the center. Jack Crisp can play sort of anywhere. So now that we've got a couple more years developing these guys, the depth is looking really good. We've recruited really well. And I guess the crux of it is, signing up Tim Membry. We got Mason Cox, but Tim Membry is going to put pressure on Cox, and maybe Dan McStay can sort of take that ruck. We don't really need Cox in the team if Membry is going to kick 30 goals like he did at the Saints. So it is pretty exciting, the depth, and I feel like it's hard to pick a best 23. I tried doing it the other day, and it's so difficult at the moment.
Yeah, so I want to ask you about, so you're at training and you watch him. So are we going to see Dan Houston playing that behind the ball, Nick Dacos role, get the ball in his hands as many times as we can? And then now we're going to start seeing Nick a lot more forward of the ball, you reckon? Is he going to be on the forward side of stoppages or trying to run out of the stoppage with ball in his hand? Where do you think we're going to see Nick most likely this year?
So, yeah, with Dan Houston, it will be sort of behind the ball. But with Nick, it's been hard to sort of tell because he's dealing with that plantar injury. He hasn't been in match sim, so it's really hard to tell. But I dare say he's going to be in a position that he would have won the Brownlow in. Just straight into the middle, forward of centre. And we don't have to sort of waste him on that half back line because we have Josh Dacos and Dan Houston just lasering these footballs out to the guys on the wing. So Nick Dacos can do his thing and play his trade. And we've got to remember that Nick Dacos last season, he was getting the ball out of the contest and winning the ball and using the ball because there was no Tom Mitchell since Anzac Day. Now you've got Harry Perryman in there. You got Jack Crisp that can sort of do that job as well, and Ed Allen if we sort of need him. So now we've got a little bit more trust around those mids for Nick to let him do what he needs to do.
Yeah, it sounds like to me from what you're saying is Harry Perryman's going to sort of do a bit of the defensive work for Nick Dacos and cover his ass so he can go forward and just do what he does, and he's going to be in there ready to defend for him. What teams did for Dusty forever, what teams did for Fife forever, which is unbelievable. The other one is there's a chance Dacos gets treated like he's Gold Coast Gary Ablett this year, like tagged by Ryan, like a Ryan Crowley tag every single week. Do you reckon they're going to be ready for that? And he's going to be ready for that?
Yeah, 100%. So he's been getting like these sort of soft tags. Sydney did it really well. And I remember after that Sydney game a couple of years ago, Nick Dacos said that they love when Nick gets tagged because they put all their sort of eggs in that basket. And then you have Josh, you have Crisp, you have Pendles, you have these other guys that can come up. And if Nick gets tagged, chuck him in the forward line and put Dan Houston into the center, and then Josh Dacos onto the half back line. So now we've got this sort of, this sort of Hydra mentality where you just cut one head off and two others pop up.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. You got anything, Das?
Yeah, no, it's just really interesting to hear. And it's going to be so interesting to see. Me and Jeff have been talking about, if he does get tagged, but he's going to so many Collingwood games live and watching it. He just runs out games better than anyone. He'll get you eventually. Like that game against North Melbourne. Like they tagged him all game and he just gets off the chain. Now, let's get into a few little odds. Do you have a dark horse All-Australian for us? Is there someone that you're just looking at, you're like, you know what, he actually might be a chance this year?
Before you go, PointsBet are the first basically market to ever let you bet on All-Australian before the start of the season. So I've got Dan Houston. I reckon he's an absolute lock to be in the squad of 40 at the least. He's paying $3.50 to make All-Australian. He's the favourite in defenders. And then the other one I'm looking at is Bobby Hill. The whole team is set up for him to dominate. You're getting 23-1 for Bobby Hill to make All-Australian. I've got the points bet up here. Here's a couple of guys we need to look out for, Swoop.
Look, I think someone who's really impressed me at training that you don't hear much about at the moment is Darcy Cameron. So I know he made the 40 squad last season.
He had a great year.
But Darcy Cameron, finished top 3 in the Copeland. I think he's just going to go to another level, and the AFL world is going to start talking about him as a premier ruckman. What I think happens is he wears the load of all ruck duties with no Mason Cox, because I think Membry plays over Cox, and you've got Dan McStay and maybe Billy Frampton taking a bit of the ruck duties. They've been shown at training to do a little bit of the rucking and let Darcy Cameron do his thing. The thing I love about Darcy is that he's such a good mark. He drops back really well and becomes almost that seventh tall defender that can take the mark when the ball gets bombed into there. So I think, that's my dark horse for not even just for the broad selection, for the actual, best 22.
Yeah, so he's the 9th ruckman listed. You're getting 10-1 for Darcy Cameron. He's a good footballer. I really like that. Darcy, have you got one?
Yeah, I've backed up. I went through my notes from last year. I picked the same bloke, but Braden Maynard. So he was obviously All-Australian 2022. Same thing. What is he? He's played just over 200 games, or he's almost at 200 games. He's literally in his prime. He's a bull. He's an absolute beast. And this is value. He's paying 19-1. For someone that was just All-Australian 2 years ago, that's value. I thought this might have been maybe $12, $11, but $19 is a heap of value on that one.
So, you dropped a little nugget there as well. So you think we're going to see a lot less Mason Cox this year, and it's going to be more Membry, more Darcy, a lot of Darcy Cameron, and then as you said, Myercheck and Frampton will just McStay and Frampton will just chop out when they have to.
Yeah, I love Cox, and if you look at the stats, we win more games with Cox in the team, and he does bring a lot to our team. But I think when you have someone like a Membry, when you've recruited Membry, you can't play Membry, McStay, Mycheck, and Cox and Cameron in the same team.
Yep.
So someone has to give, and I think the trio of McStay, Membry, and Mycheck is just too tantalising. Not to have them as many times as you can in that forward line.
No, I love it. Love it. The next question, we just write it down as coach, captain. You can, interpret it as you will. I'm the only one that I feel like raising alarm bells on this, but I just feel like Fly doesn't play the kids, doesn't trust the kids, and we don't see any kids developing. Is he the coach that's going to want to rebuild if the Clarko Hawthorn situation happens? So you stay in this premiership window, everyone retires. Is he going to be hanging around? I know this is thinking a bit more down the track. And then is Darcy Moore the captain? I think he said some stupid shit on when he got the mic a couple of times this year in big games. Can you tell us your relationship with Craig McRae, your relationship with Darcy Moore, what it's going to look like this year? Tell us a bit about Craig McRae.
Look, Craig McRae, his background is a teacher, so he comes from a teaching background. So I think if we have to rebuild, which I still, maybe it's just a bias in me, and maybe I just don't want to admit it, but I still don't think we will be rebuilding at all. But if there's one person to lead us in a rebuild, it would be someone who has taught kids, like literal kids. And I think we're in such a good position with Craig at the helm, and now Barry Karp as our president, getting Charlie Gardner from Sydney as well. I think we've got a really good heads of football at the moment. With Darcy Moore, I still love him as a captain. I think he needs a little bit more support around the leadership group. I know last season we had all defenders in the leadership group, and as all defenders, we were just conceding too many sort of goals and points against us. So I think it needs to come from different sort of areas. I even think Nick sort of gets a look in this season as maybe some sort of vice captain or emerging leader. Like we saw Sheasel is a vice captain at the Roos, and he's only 2 years in.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to nearly make Nick the captain this year or as early as next year. Do you chat with these guys when you go to training? Can you chat to Craig McRae, or you can, but you sort of let him do his thing and you're on the other side of the field? Like when you're at training, where are you standing? This sort of stuff.
Yeah, look, the thing I love about Collingwood training, and I don't know how it is for other teams, but at the end of the game, at the end of training session, if you're on the boundary, the players will come up, they'll have a chat, they'll sign photos, and I'll sign your stuff and take photos with you. And I've been fortunate enough to talk to Craig a couple of times. Nothing sort of serious. One of my goals this year is to have a sit down with him. I think that would be fantastic. But he just seems so down to earth. The couple of times that I've met him, he just seems like, yeah, he knows what he's doing. He's got the complete trust in from the players and from the club itself. And one thing I love about Craig and what he said last season when he's like, I don't want picks, I want players. He wants to win. He came from, I don't know if people forget, but he came from one of the best teams that we've ever seen in the history of the AFL. They could have won 4 in a row, had it obviously not been for Port Adelaide. So he knows what to win. He played with the best players. He played with Voss, Power, Lepper, Black, or Ackermanis, all these guys, and was coached by arguably one of the greatest coaches in modern AFL history in Lee Matthews. So he knows what it takes to win. So until we start losing and losing badly and dropping off, everyone will have faith in Craig.
So we'll get into the next bit. So it's the strength of schedule. So Fox Footy release every year at the start. So depending on where you finish, so obviously if you're Brisbane, if you're up top, you're mainly going to be doubling up on teams that finish in the top 6 and vice versa. So they usually release it. And they've got Collingwood as the 16th ranked schedule, so the 16th hardest schedule. So I went through, so we're going to go have a look at some of the games, and I just want to look at your first run at this season.
The first 9 games. Go the first 9 games. It's bloody tough.
You got the Giants, Then you got Port at the MCG, which you always smash them. That's a genuine ass kicking every single time. But then you got the Dogs. Then you got the Blues. Then you got the Swans, Brisbane, Anzac Day. And then you got the Cats, Freo, and then you got Adelaide. So by the time you get to round 10, Adelaide's the only real one, and maybe Essendon. Then I'm like, tick, tick. All the others just look like pick 'em. Like, it looks like a tough game, looks like a tough schedule. Obviously, you've probably looked at it a little bit more. What do you reckon?
It's when it came out, like we finished ninth, and we play what 8 of the 8 teams that made the top 8 in the first 10 rounds.
That's crazy.
Whatever it is, it's absolutely ridiculous. And even the teams that we sort of double up on is ridiculous as well. We don't have any sort of easy teams, and I know it's easy for me to say as a Collingwood supporter, but you got to look at Carlton, who finished 8th. They get the Roos twice, and they get West Coast twice. Again, 2 years in a row.
I know.
It's just like, it's like, how is that awesome for Carlton? Like that's 4, 8, 12. That's 16 points. You're pretty much guaranteed there. So it's awesome for you guys, but like, yeah, it's the hardest run. When it got released, you would have thought that we just lost the grand final.
Yeah.
That's not a ninth. That's not a team that finished ninth. That's not their schedule. That's not their normal fixture. That rarely happens. And yeah, it's going to be a hard slog. And last season we started off
zipping 3.
with a hard schedule as well. Yeah, we got 0-3, went up to Brisbane, and that was our
a huge win. Yeah,
and we don't beat Brisbane during the home and away season anyway. And yeah, so that was pretty interesting. I think. Look, if you can start the first 6 rounds 4-2, I think you would take that. But if you're starting 0-3 again, you know she's all over, because we saw Brisbane win a flag from 0-4. And even Hawthorn, make the finals. But it's hard. But look, to be the best, you got to beat the best, and you're versing the top 8 straight up.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've got it here. After the first 9 weeks, I've got you at either 4-5 or 5-4, basically, one game. But then it does soften up. You still, as you said, you play Carlton twice, Freo twice, Hawthorn, who are probably better than you, twice, Brisbane twice, and then the Crows and Demons twice, which you'll probably like your chance in those games. But yeah, it's a tough schedule. But as I said, when the Pies are flying and there's 90,000 coming to the G every week, you start overwhelming teams, and that's when you go on to win 19 games sort of thing, rather than just whatever it takes to make finals. So it's a tough schedule. Anything more from you, Das?
Yeah, it just exactly what you said. You just don't want to have to claw back. As I said, you started zipping 3, but then after round 11 last year, you were 6, 3, and 2 draws. Yep. So you actually clawed it back, and you're in a pretty good position. It was just a bit of a roller coaster towards the back end of the year. You won some close games, you lost some, and obviously just only missing out pretty much by half a game there in the end. Now, this is a bit of a fun one. You can either use it to rev someone up or tear shreds off someone. Do you have anyone in the gun? Someone for this season, someone that you just want to pin the ears back, go a little bit harder, you're expecting more of. Is there anyone in your gun?
I think someone who sort of dropped their head a little bit last season was Isaac Quaynor.
Yes.
And I love Q so much. And he was a catalyst of us winning that 2023 premiership. Didn't lose a sort of one-on-one. He can run off the half back. He was really strong. Then he dropped his head last season. But in saying that, all the defenders sort of dropped their head. He comes back this season leaner than he ever has been, and quicker, and he looks stronger. If there was another Smokey for All Australian, you would put some money on Q as well. And I think having Dan Houston down back will help him a lot, because what we saw last season was our defenders without Nathan Murphy trying to do more roles than they were in 2023. So I think it's really it's Q's year where he just has to head down, ass up, and then just absolutely smash it out and get back to that 2022, 2023 form.
Yeah, nice. Darcy, you go.
Yeah, so I've got you got rid of Jack Ginnivan, and then you sold a future first to get this guy. So it's Lachie Schultz. He has to come out and have an absolute career year. The fact that you got Tassie coming in, you've got all these other teams coming in, and first round draft picks and getting young talent in the building means so much going forward, especially now more than ever. So you've traded away your future first round, which is an early pick. So you got this guy. So these last 3 years, he's kicked, Lachie Schultz is his 24, 33, and 30 goals. he has to have a 40-goal year if he's one of the premier small forwards. Like, so when we look at Charlie Cameron, he actually had a down year last year and kicked 44 goals. I predicted last year that Bobby Hill and Schultz combined could kick 80 goals. So I thought they were going to have small ball. What they kick between them? 54. Yep. So they have to increase that. He has to put more pressure on, and he has to kick some more goals. It's plain and simple. You got him in the building exactly for that role. So I want to see him step up and have an absolute blinder. Jev?
Yeah, mine's Jordan De Goey. Never made All-Australian, only played 13 games last year. He kicked 48 goals in 2018, 34 goals in 2019, and then 10 goals in 2024, 18 goals in 2023. What Jordan De Goey are we getting? Is he absolutely all in, 100% committed, or does he have too much interest outside of the game? And maybe the Pies should have traded him away. Like, you know, he's got the business now where he's selling boats or whatever he does, whatever Adrian Portelli does. So he's got that sort of stuff now. So I just want to know, and could you have gotten 2 firsts for him to go to a Sydney-based team? Are you going to regret not doing it? So I'm going to put Jordan to go in the gun. The next one we've got for you, Swoop, is the best bet for the Collingwood Magpies this year. This is by points bet. So we're getting 10-1 for you to win the premiership, $5 to make the grand final, $13 minor premiership, $3 to make the top 4, $1.55 to make the 8, and then you're getting $2.45 for you to miss the 8 and $6 for Nick Dacos to make the Brownlow. What's your sort of favourite bet on the board when it comes to the Pies?
Mate, it's all in this year. We recruited to win the flag. Just put it on the Pies to win the flag. Like,
just take the $10.
Yeah, $10. And you got to think that, you know, compared to the 2023 Premiership team, the only notable differences now is Nathan Murphy is obviously retired. No Jack Ginnivan. And in comparing 2023's team to 2025's, you've got 2 more years into Nick Dacos, who is now playing a 100% midfield role. You've got Dan Houston, Dan McStay, who we don't get into a grand final without Dan McStay averaging 2 goals since he came back in that round 16 or 17 in 2023. Adding Harry Perryman, and it's 2023 on a little bit of steroids, I reckon. So I'm just naive, but I've got us put money on the flag.
Yeah, I like the optimism. So do you just reckon there's no chance they miss the finals again next year?
No. It's always, what is the stat? There's 3 teams from the bottom 10 that make it into the top 8, or 2 or 3 teams every year that switches hands. So yeah, I think it's us, Fremantle. And who else did I have? Maybe the Saints that make the top 8.
Yeah. No, it's good. Das, what did you have down as your best bet?
As long as he plays, the best double your money bet is Nick Dacos for All-Australian. He's 2-1. Just if he's playing, he's All-Australian. He's on one of those runs now like Bont. He rocks up and he's just All-Australian every single season. Max Gawn, as long as he's playing, he's All-Australian. Like Nick Dacos, by the end of his career, he's going to have probably 7 or 8 as long as he's healthy. Like, it's his spot now. Like, someone has to eclipse him for him not to be in that side. So I think 2-1, it's just the best bet on the board.
Is there any doubt of him missing any footy at all, Swoop? Like maybe starting from round 4 onwards, or is it just round 1 he'll be there?
Yeah. He'll play the first game. So with his plantar injury, the thing is, it's mainly just recovery and rest. You can still play. He'll still play, and he's training really well now. You can still play with it unless you're in an older body. Like Tom Mitchell, we saw, had the same injury, but he was 32. He had to get that plantar operated out because he's just been dealing with it for years. So as long as he rests and recovers well, and we saw Nick Dacos come back from a cracked knee to win a flag in 2023. So we know that he's very meticulous with his injury rehab. So he'll be fine. He'll do everything that he can to play against the Giants opening round.
They do say 22-year-olds just heal like Wolverine sort of thing. So yeah, he will just. Has he changed his body at all? Are you seeing anything different? Is he bigger in the butt and stuff again, or bigger in the shoulders, or is he still that sort of lean, just freak? And he's just a freak.
Yeah, he still looks pretty lean. He looks just as quick as he did, but without really seeing him in those match sims, which I'm spewing about because I'd love to see him play, a full match sim, which we should get in the next couple of weeks. He looks just as good, just a bit more mature now.
Yeah, I love it.
So the next question: what is their floor of wins? So last year you went 12 wins, 9 losses, and 2 draws. I know I keep harping on it, but there's a world where all the 30-year-olds look their age, they don't improve, and you only win 11 games. That's for me. I think the floor's about 10, 11 wins. And also Nick gets tagged like he's Ablett Jr. and it's a tough season for him. So my floor is about 10, 11 wins. Das, what's your floor of wins?
Yeah, same. If everything goes wrong, all the old people get injured, they don't have the depth, all the young kids that haven't played that many games together. That's what I mean. In world's worst scenario, I think, they're just missing out on finals by 1 or 2 spots and maybe 11, 12 wins. What about you, Swoop?
Yeah, I had us at 11, 12 wins as the floor. So we obviously win 12 games last season. I think 11, 12 is, just about, if we have the same season as last season, we do have to play the kids and whatnot, that's about that dozen games that we sort of win.
And then their ceiling. So, 12 wins last year. We give them the 2 draws as win and maybe one more of those close ones you lost. That's a 15-win side. But the thing about, as I said before, when Collingwood get up and about and they're good and 90,000 are rolling in and teams aren't used to coming to the G, like they turn into an 18, 19-win side just like that. But I sort of see this side as about a 15-win side, maybe 16 at max. Das, what have you got?
Yeah, I had it exactly at 15. I just think, if they get a couple of those, I just don't think they're the best of the best. I still think the Giants are better than them. The Swans are better than them. I think Brisbane is still better than them. Geelong are better than them. So I don't see them finishing in that top 4. But definitely they're a 5 to 8 side, I think. Swoop?
I had us at 16 wins. I think we can push for the top 4. I had us finishing anywhere between 3rd and 6th. But it also depends on, obviously what happens with other teams. And the Giants or Geelong might have a season like we had. Brisbane might have a season like we had. Like, what's Swans. Brisbane looking like without Neil Danaher? Not Neil Danaher. Joe Danaher. How much does Swans 2 grand finals of, 80-point losses? What does that do to their mentality? 100%. The Giants being up by 40 points in each of their finals and losing them, what does that do to their confidence? So there could be other teams that sort of have a season that we had this year, and it generally does happen. But if we're up and about, there's no reason why we can't push for that top 4 spot. But look, Brisbane proved last year that you can start 0-4, finish outside the top 4, and win the flag.
Yeah, and then the final, so the season over-under is 13.5. I'm assuming you think the over 13.5 is an absolute lock?
Yep.
Das?
Yeah, so this is a perfect line. If it's 12.5, I think I'd take the over.
Yeah, right.
It's 13.5. If we had to put $1,000 on every team, I would hate to bet this one. I don't know where to sit it at. I almost just have a hunch that maybe the older guys might get a bit injured and they'll just miss the 8. So I think I'm going to go just under. So I think they might finish with 13 wins, which will be just under. They still might make finals, but that's just under that 13 mark. So I'm going under.
Now that I've had a bit of a look at it, and they had the season from hell last year, a disaster season. They had 12 wins and 2 draws. You turn that into 2 wins. You add Dan Houston. I'm the same as you, Das. I'm not going to touch it, but I'm leaning over. I'm leaning exactly 14 wins. I wouldn't put any money on the under, that's for sure. And then the last one's a multi is we're trying to, if you're an absolute Collingwood nuff or you're Collingwood nuffs and you're going to have a $10 bet. So saying for the Adelaide Crows, for example, the bet would be Isaac Rangan to make All-Australian, Adelaide to make the 8, and Fogarty and Thilthorpe to combine for 70 goals, something like that. Yep. What is something like Collingwood? Is it maybe Dacos top 3 of the Brownlow, them to make the 8 or them over 13.5? What's something you can see is a lock on the season?
Off the top of my head, I'd probably go, and probably what I would put money on if I was a betting man would be Nick Dacos to win the Brownlow, Pies top 4, and Dan McStay to kick 40+ goals.
I like it.
Great bet. We'll be in contact if we can get this up with PointsBet about that one. But that is a great bet. And then just that's basically it. I just want to ask you a couple of questions about yourself. So what games are we going to see you at? Do you travel? Are you going to go to the Giants for the opening round? Are you going to go to every Collingwood game for this season?
Yeah, so one of my goals, now that I'm sort of doing this I am doing this full time, is to go to as many interstate games as I could. With work last year, it was just impossible. I'll be driving up for the Giants game opening round, so that's going to be really fun. getting over to Gather Round as well. And I've only really been to the SCG as an interstate game. So I want to get to as many interstate games as I can this year. I'd love to go over to Perth as well. But if I can get to all 24 Collingwood games, that'll be a good year for me. Always at the MCG, always at Marvel. I actually like Marvel. I don't know whatever. I actually don't mind Marvel. They've got a good. They got some good food there, and but I'll be there. I'll be there.
No, that's good. Yeah, so we're going to be at that Giants Collingwood game in opening round, so we're going to have to catch up with you for a beer, 100%. And we're going to hopefully see you at the MCG a couple of times when we go to Pies games. The next one is these are the questions that came to me while we're talking. Jack Ginnivan, what's your opinion on him now? Are you obviously you love him? He's a premiership player forever at the Pies, but now does he give you the absolute shits? You reckon he's a bit disrespectful? You still love him, sort of thing?
I think it's a love-hate thing with Jack. I love that he's doing well. Playing for a club that you grew up supporting is every sort of kid's dream. I didn't appreciate the sleeping gesture to the fans last season, but that's just Jack. We love it when he did it for us, and we've got to take it on the chin when he does it against us. And he's only 21, 22, and he's got to be a premier forward for the Hawks.
Yep. Darcy, you got any questions off the top of your head?
Nah, that's it, mate. I just honestly just really appreciate your time. Like, obviously coming out 45 minutes, we know that you're obviously doing so much yourself. So, yeah, really appreciate you hanging around with us for about 45 minutes. And, good luck on the season, and we'll definitely catch up throughout the year for a few frothies.
Yeah, we can't wait to shout you a beer at the MCG this year or in Sydney opening round. We can't wait to see you at a game, mate. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. Love what you guys do, and put some money on that multi. I reckon.
We'll see what we can do. We might even put $10 on a few as well. Good on you, Swoop. Thank you, mate.
Thanks, guys.
What are you prepared to lose today? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.